Our youth want to talk to adults about the issues that they face. They especially would like to talk to their parents about these issues. Our youth face many challenging and confusing issues in the world today. I had a great example of how the youth do like to talk about these topics, even if they're awkward and difficult to talk about, in a 15-year-old Sunday school class that I taught several years ago. I had a great group of kids, and they were always very respectful. They would participate if I asked them questions or if I asked them to read scriptures. But I could not get them to be engaged and excited about the lesson and get involved in an open, enthusiastic discussion. Until one lesson that I had, the youth were so excited about this lesson and so involved in the discussion that they didn't want to leave the class. And ironically, the topic of the lesson was the law of chastity. And the lesson started out, as those lessons usually do, with the kids all staring awkwardly at their feet and shuffling their feet back and forth nervously. And as I explained to them about what the law of chastity is and why they need to live the law of chastity, and then I asked the question that they wanted the answer to. They've all heard, since they were beehives and deacons, about the law of chastity and why they should live the law of chastity. But the question they want the answer to is what is appropriate in other situations and where is the line? And so when I asked them this question and told them that I didn't have the answers, that they needed to figure this out for themselves, they began discussing this, and they had a very good discussion. And it was very obvious that they want to talk about these issues, even if they're awkward. But if you put it in a lecture format, that makes them just very uncomfortable. But if you let them talk to you and ask the questions they have, this opens it up to a great discussion. And so there are many issues that the youth would like to talk to adults about that are very confusing to them. One of these big issues they face today is, what is the big deal about pornography? The big deal about pornography is the damaging effects of pornography. Pornography damages the brain, it damages the family, and it damages society. The damages on the brain are similar to those with using meth and cocaine, because the reaction in the brain is releasing of the same chemicals that are released when you're using these hard drugs. The difference is that with using pornography and viewing pornography, the reaction in the brain is much more powerful, and it is like a chemical explosion going off in the brain. Also, in teens' brains, these reward systems are much more powerful, 2 to 4 times more powerful than in an adult brain. And so in a teen's brain, the chemical reaction is much greater. And what happens is when they view pornography or take these drugs, there is an excessively high amount of dopamine released into the brain. And so it floods the brain with dopamine. And because of the effects that are similar to meth and cocaine, pornography is obviously addicting. Dopamine, when their brain is flooded with this dopamine, the dopamine receptors shrink because the brain is trying to regulate the amount of dopamine that's being released into the brain, and so that it's a more normal level. And as these receptors shrink, the individual needs to have more and more release of dopamine to even be able to feel normal, because there's fewer receptors releasing dopamine. And over time, they begin to crave more and more pornography. Elder Dallin H. Oaks said, "It's difficult, it impairs decision-making capacities, and it hooks its users, drawing them back obsessively for more and more. A man who had been addicted to pornography and to hard drugs wrote me this comparison. In my eyes, cocaine doesn't hold a candle to this. I have done both. Quitting even the hardest drugs was nothing compared to trying to quit this." Pornography physically changes the brain. Viewing pornography rewires the neural pathways in the brain and makes new connections. As this was stated in fightthenewdrug.org, it said, "Neurons that fire together wire together." And also studies show that the frontal lobes in the brain shrink in the brains of those who are experiencing addiction. Pornography is damaging to the family. Viewing pornography damages the ability to form meaningful relationships. In Pornography and Violence, a paper by M.A. Layden, he stated, "Healthy relationships are built on equality, honesty, respect, and love. But in porn, it's the reverse. Interactions are based on dominance, disrespect, abuse, violence, and detachment. Viewing pornography results in the loss of the spirit. Elder Dallin H. Oaks said, "When we worthily partake of the sacrament, we are promised that we will always have his spirit to be with us. To qualify for that promise, we covenant that we will always remember him." Those who seek out and use pornography for sexual stimulation obviously violate these covenants. They also violate a sacred covenant to refrain from unholy and impure practices. They cannot have the Spirit of the Lord with them. I have a personal experience with seeing the damaging effects of pornography on families. My sister married a really sharp return missionary in the temple. They had 4 beautiful daughters, and they were the cutest little family. Her husband was the best dad, and everything with him was awesome. And everything was an adventure. Even going to the grocery store was an adventure. And they just had so much fun together. But then he got involved in pornography, and it totally changed his personality and changed the way that he interacted with his family. He began to be very abusive of my sister, which seems to be a pattern with those who view pornography, with its objectifying of women and violence towards women. And so eventually my sister, because the abuse got so bad, she finally divorced him. After she left and he was out of the home, her 2 older daughters confided in her that he had been sexually abusing them and had threatened to kill their mother if they told. That was 12 years ago, and the girls are now all grown, but they all suffer the effects, emotional and physical, of their father's pornography addiction and the abuse that went on in the home. Pornography damages society. Viewing pornography leads to, as I had mentioned, objectifying women and promotes violence towards women. It makes women believe that abuse in relationships is normal and even healthy. Viewing pornography has some side effects for the individual who is viewing it. One of these is a declined material success. Another one is a change in beliefs. And in both of these situations, this is something that damages the family and the society. Now that you know the damages that pornography causes on the brain, the family, and the society, you need to take action, and you need to talk to your children about pornography and the damaging effects. You need to get educated, and there are some great resources that you can go to learn more about the effects of pornography and how to talk to your children. One of these is overcomingpornography.org. That is the church website. There also is the manual, A Parent's Guide, which is excellent about talking to your children about issues that involve pornography and sexual education. Another great website is fightthenewdrug.org. They have lots and lots of references to articles, other websites, studies, lots and lots of information that you can get about the damaging effects of pornography and how to help victims of pornography. 80% of first exposures to pornography occur in the home between the ages of 4 and 11. So it is extremely important to talk to your children. Pornography loses its allure when it is talked about openly. It thrives in secrecy. If you are addicted, you need to get help. How many days does it take to overcome an addiction? It takes 2 years. You can't do it alone. You need to go to your church leaders. You need to go through the process of repentance and have the power of the atonement help you to overcome this addiction. We all need to get involved and warn others about the damaging effects of pornography.